not gonna lie, this video has taken me nearly 2 days to actually get right, so you have to bear with me. This is not going to be perfect, but hence why I'm filming this for like the 3rd time, is to try and get it perfect. So, welcome back, Edheads. We're talking about a continuation on from the last 2 videos. The first video was looking at like what you usually train during the base period, your endurance, and then how you go about measuring that in the other video, with also talking about basic abilities, really. So improving your endurance for one, and then improving things like your cadence, efficiency and whatnot, and how to measure that in the past video, which I'll put up here. So continuing on from that, we're going to be talking about planning 2021, and I'm going to actually show you what I'm seeing on my screen, because we'll use me as an example for next year. At the minute, just to give you a bit of an update as to where we're at, both me and Charlie are self-isolating because of the dreaded COVID Rona virus, and therefore I'm having to push things like back. All of my planning that I'd already done up till now, I have to scrap and restart. So just for you to know, if you like get struck down by illness or something, chances are you'll have to do the same as well. But before we get started with this video, there's one thing you have to do. Please hit the like button, and actually there's a second thing, please subscribe, because well, why not? It's all good and free information. So without further ado, let's get started. This might be a long one, so grab your cup of coffee, as Scott always says, and let's get into it. So to start off with, I want to say that you can find much of this information online if you look long and hard enough for it. The trouble is with finding it online is that there's so much information out there, and I'm somebody who usually learns better from a video, and if you are as well, then you're in the right place. So first off, the more advanced, so we covered the basic abilities in the last video. The more advanced abilities are things like muscular endurance, anaerobic endurance and sprint power. Say if you're a climber, if you're a time trialist or breakaway rider, or if you're a sprinter, these 3, I'll say 4, these 3 abilities you will ideally pigeonhole yourself in, and possibly know exactly where to focus most of your attention when it comes to build periods, which we'll come on to later on in this video. So it's pretty simple. A sprinter will usually mainly focus on sprinting abilities. A time trialist will focus on mainly muscular endurance, which is really speaking the ability to ride at a moderately hard pace for a moderately long period of time. And you know, a hill climber will generally have a mixture of the two, muscular endurance and anaerobic endurance. So as you'll see in a bit, the closer you get to your goal, your A race, the more specific your training becomes, and therefore that's why these 3 abilities are really important, because the closer you get to it, whatever that may be, you know, for a sprinter obviously, the more sprinting you do, or if you are a time trialist, or if your event requires, you know, lots of climbing, you know what to aim for. I'm going to show you my screen now. And we're going to take a deep dive, as the kids say. So I know lots of you don't use Training Peaks. I'm not saying you have to use Training Peaks. It's just something I've used for like 9 or 10 years. So when things are already kind of built into, you know, your habits, it makes it a lot easier. It's also where I do a lot of my coaching as well, so that also makes it a lot easier. So you see straight off, this is my week of training this week. Because of the illness, I haven't done anything since Thursday, so ignore the red. I hate to see the red, but it's there. We accept it. So we're going to head over to this thing called the ATP, which is the Annual Training Plan. And this is what my annual training plan looks like currently. Now, obviously, because of this little setback, I am going to have to change things. That's a given, because you can't just jump back straight into what you plan on doing, because I will have inevitably lost fitness in the last couple of days, the last week or so, and that's going to push us back, you know, at least a week, maybe even 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one just for this video. So how you can do this, and I actually ran through this with somebody last night on a phone call, is you have the ability now, and like I said, you don't have to use Training Peaks, but it just gives you an idea. You can run through what sort of methodology you want to use. Do you want to go off weekly hours, weekly TSS, or event fitness? I would highly recommend event fitness, especially if you know what sort of peak CTL, that's your fitness in Training Peaks, has been when you've had your best performances. So, for example, for me, I know that some of my best performances have come when I've been between 100 and 120 CTL. So a lot of my training will have to take me above that in order to peak and lose fitness, in order to be fresh and fit for 120 or 100 to 120 fitness. I know we're getting amongst the weeds right now, but hear me out. Planning out your whole year, whether that be, doing it yourself or, using somebody that can help you do it, is one of the best ways you can get the most out of your season. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, even if you don't really have any event goals, it can be basically month goals. If you know the best weather in your, wherever you live, is going to be in August, for example, and you know that that's when your cycling club run the most club rides and the longest club rides of the year, and you want to peak for that because you want to enjoy it, then set your A event for then. So, and you can always build for that. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be peaking for the Tour de France. You know what I'm saying? So here we have a list of the things that I'm planning for next year. Take a quick look at a couple of things that I need to change, get rid of, but ones I think that will stay will be a 600-kilometer Audax, Everesting world record attempt, Tour de Stations, Haute Route, question mark, Dolomites, and then the National Hill Climb Championships. So how do I go about scheduling these things? Well, I'm glad you asked. Some of it's already been done here ahead of time. Here's what I did earlier. I've also made some cue cards as well, so I don't start rambling. Just for argument's sake, we're just going to roll with what's on here, okay? Just for time's sake, we're just going to roll with what's on here. What you see now is it's actually labelled certain sections of the year for developing certain systems. So base 1, base 2, base 3, build 1, build 2, peak, race, transition. Those are your basics. Very, very basic. Easy to follow. Very simply explained. So very simply explained, the base periods are where you develop your basic abilities. That being what I said in the last video, link down below probably. And then the build period is where you really specialize and you become a lot more specific the closer you get to your main event. That's not to say that you can't do intervals during the base period, and this is what I'll get to in a second, where we talk about different periodization techniques that I might implement in trying to get myself back to my peak fitness for the event. Because currently what we're looking at now is what you'd call linear periodization, which is the classic model where there's an easy to see progression throughout the year. Not only do you increase volume, you increase intensity, and therefore that brings on a general high level of fitness. But there's multiple ways you can do it. Not one of them is the best, not one of them is the right way for you. They all work, and the best thing about it is they can be changed during the year. You can change between different periodizations through the year, whatever suits. So I've quickly explained that. Now, how you can plan your season, how I'm going to plan my season, is off of a few simple things. So I've got my goals, which you've seen, I've kind of put them in already. Power, so that comes in the more like training specific. So if there's any power targets you want to aim for, they will kind of go a long way into getting you towards those end goals. Because at the end of the day, an end goal is usually an event or usually a specific ride. And then the second thing, which will be a power target, for example, will also get you to that goal. You then have volume, which is now kind of, it's changed from volume to more kind of stress, training stress, however you want to manage that. I know lots of different systems predict stress differently. but as long as you use the same one, then, you know, it works. Prioritise, so A, B and C events, you know, briefly talked about that before, but an A event will be literally, you will peak for it, you will taper 2 weeks. B event, you taper for a short period of time, you know, maybe a week or less, and then a C event, you just train through it. And then divide into periods, and this is what I'm saying here, a lot of this will do it for you. However, the art in it is knowing how to mix it around, how to change things, how to make it work when something's gone wrong. That's the art of that. It's not just, you know, you don't just follow it and you know, I won't just make this now and then follow it throughout the year, because it will guarantee not bring me my best results. Flexibility is what will bring me my best results, and knowing how to use that flexibility as well. So the duration of some of these is questionable, because a lot of these can last, so you know, your base, you can never usually have enough base training. So if you're ever in doubt, always come back to doing some volume, because the base necessarily is a great gap filler. If you've got something during the year, you've got spare time, that is your gap filler. So just because they have 4-week periods blocked out here, as you can see, it doesn't necessarily mean they should be 4 weeks. You can. Some of these have already been planned in for me. I've got like a 1200, 1300 TSS week to build me up and to give me that progressive overload. If I scroll down, I can see the weeks here. When I go over to my calendar, this is what a lot of you will see on the right hand side, is the period that you're in your annual training plan, and then what you're working during that training plan. So endurance and speed skill, for example, here. So going back to it then, this is highly customizable. So you can drag, you know, up and down, you can change certain parameters, you can even change which kind of period you want to be into, which is now where we come on to, very briefly, to keep this video short, alternative planning. So before we go any further, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this video, please leave a thumbs up. And if there's anything you want specifically, right, because I know this video is getting kind of vague, but hopefully it's still giving you an idea, leave a comment down below, anything specific, and I will comment back directly to you to answer that question as best as I can. So, a couple of things you need to remember when you're thinking about how best to plan that whole year. And for me, I'm quite lucky because I have, you know, I run the coaching business. I get to ride my bike whenever I want to during the day. I'm not kind of, you know, governed by time. However, it does take up a lot of my time, so I still have to think about when I'm going to train. But the important thing is that you follow 4 main principles. 1, it has to be progressive. 2, it has to be specific. 3, it has to have some kind of reversibility. So what that means is the ability to obviously build to a certain level and then rest and recover in order to, yes, you're losing fitness, but to create the best shape you can be in for that main event. And then finally, individuality. So it goes without saying, your training needs to be individual to you. So I know a number of people who watch my videos, who I'm very grateful for, are either late to the sport or older athletes. Now, for the most part, an older athlete will need a lot more time, care and attention because of their slow recovery rates and ideally less of a big jump in training load. So usually we work on a 2-week on, 1 week off basis. Of course, what this means is that, say if you were to do the standard 3-week on, 1 week off, you are losing a week, that last week of that build. So what I'd say is, if you were going along those lines of 2 on, 1 off, you could add another 3-week block, or 2-week block in your case, after the fact. So after you finish, say, you know, base 3, you could add another base 3 with those missing 3 weeks that you've missed in those first 1, 2, 3. Another one, of course, is some form of plan that allows you to work around a very time-limited lifestyle. So if you're trying to hit high volume, for example, using a classic periodization approach and you're building into that last week and it's really high volume, honestly, you need to figure out what you can handle for your biggest week. If you can't handle what you've planned, which is say 20 hours, knock off, you know, whatever you can manage. So if you can manage 15, and then up the intensity of, say, if you're doing any zone 1 work, so recovery, during that week, up it to zone 2. If you're doing any tempo work in that week, so lower zone 3 or whatever, up it to upper zone 3. You'll be amazed actually at how much of a small difference that can make. It does make a big difference when you can't fit in those extra, say, 5 hours on your biggest week. But like I said, they are only applicable to your biggest week. So reverse periodization is something that I actually run by quite a lot. And it's only because the weather is sometimes quite bad in the UK, and because I'm not road racing now full time, that's not my thing, my main thing at least, I can kind of get away with it because it goes against the idea that your training has to get more and more specific the closer you get to your goal. So if you're doing high intensity during the winter, which would be, say, your build period instead of base, then you're actually not getting more specific the closer you get to event. However, can be argued because you don't have to stay in reverse periodization all the way through the year. Like I said earlier, you don't have to stay in it. So in theory, it does work because you can do the Zwift racing, you can do a couple of, well, I would say one interval, 2 interval sessions a week, as well as 1 Zwift race a week, for example, during the winter. And that would keep you going until it's time to come out of hibernation, and doing a bit longer riding on the road, for example. So I could go here with reverse periodization. I could actually team it up with undulating periodization, which is funny enough what we tend to fall into during the season when if some of you are racing quite regularly, or that can still come down to Zwift as well. If you're Zwift racing quite regularly, you can kind of go like, you can drag this one up, you can do a high volume week, you can do a low volume week but high intensity. Oh, it's doing its thing now. So you can do this, you can do that, or you can drag this one. So you kind of go in and out of duration, intensity, duration, intensity, and eventually, you know, you can build them up because they will inevitably get progressively more difficult. So you still have those 4 key things that you need to keep in mind when planning out your training. It needs to be progressive, specific, has reversibility, and be individual to you. So as you can tell, it's a big topic. Very difficult to cover all of it and keep myself from like not just going off on a tangent. I'd love to go deeper into something because it's what I love to do, but I know I have to keep it brief so that you guys can watch this video and not get too bored. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, if there's any questions, any at all, specifics that you can't find the answer from online somewhere, you know, punch them down in the comments down below and I'll get back to you. Now, like I said, if you can organise your year and your season and have some kind of idea as to, you know, where you want to distribute your goals, it will make things so much clearer. You'll have so much more focus, and it just makes it a lot easier when you have something like set. And it's not set permanently, it's there for you to tweak, it's there for you to work with somebody to get their opinion on. And since we're all trying to get the best out of ourselves, it stands to reason why, you know, we'd kind of share our opinions and like what we feel works best for us. And like I said, there's no right or wrong, but it's interesting when you can use them all different periodization techniques, ways in which you can bring yourself to peak fitness. And it's different for everybody, you know, the younger you are, the older you are, it works for us all. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.